Hello everybody and welcome back, and the party are resting up in what has become their campsite here in this temple. This is a priest's quarters with ruined and broken furniture, a lot of which has been turned into a campfire over the past few days. And in last session, several things happened. We had a level up, and both Malin and Sylvia have learned fireball spells. This is good news for the party. However, it does make me wonder if the dungeon beneath here and the Karatoba are of the right scale for this party. We aren't that overpowered. If we started with the 5000 XP each as recommended, the party would have a 5th level magic user, and Fireball is an obvious choice, so I might have to reconfigure the enemies going forward to make sure it's a bit more of a challenge. The other thing you might notice is on the portraits I have added some little coloured triangles. These are to match the coloured dice that I use for decision making, in case some of you wondered what that was. I've got quite grey fingernails. I was working with grey paint and couldn't get it off. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to establish who is keeping watch during the night here, and I'm going to roll the dice, and there are going to be 3 watches with 2 each, and whoever rolls the lowest is on watch. And first watch is Stephen and Carrick. Second watch is Malin and Donard, and that leaves Sylvia and Liz on the 3rd watch. Okay, now the first watch goes according to plan, and the second watch goes according to plan. Donard feels a bit tired, so Malin says that he will wake up Sylvia and Liz in a few minutes, and Donard goes to sleep. The night goes on. Sylvia wakes up. She's an elf. She is not overly needy of sleep, but she realizes that she has overslept her watch, and when she wakes up, the fire is low, the lantern has gone, as has Malin. She wakes up Donard in a bit of a panic and asks, "Where's Malin?" Donard is furious because he realizes he's been tricked into going to sleep, and Liz and Sylvia didn't get their watch. Anything could have happened in between. So they wake up everybody else, and with some urgency they light a couple of torches and set off looking for him. They think they know where he will be, but even so they have to make haste while still being cautious going through this temple, because they believe that Malin is, as expected, in this library of ancient scrolls. And that is indeed where he is. What he did do was he did tell Donard to go to sleep. He decided to not wake up Liz and Sylvia, but he would disappear for a little bit just to check up on things. He took the lantern, he snuck around the walls of here, searching for stuff, searching for anything that might attack. He didn't get surprised, that was lucky, and he did get back to the library. Most of the wooden furniture has gone. Well, it's too fragile to sit on, but there is a stone bench, and he's placed the lantern on it, and he is trying to examine some of the scrolls. The first couple that he touched crumbled into dust, and then he realized there was a technique for handling them. And he's busy trying to translate this Hutakan language. He didn't begin with much success, but he has found a couple of scrolls in common, some of which have been translated into Hutakan, and much like the Rosetta Stone in Egypt, he is able to try and cross-reference the common tongue with the Hutakan, and he thinks he might be able to begin to crack this ancient language. He's working in deathly silence, with his lantern glowing in the middle of the room, so it should be expected that he would hear things. He himself is making very little noise, and what he does hear is that he hears that clicking, clacking, capricious noise of an exoskeleton. Not one, but several, and that causes him to look up, and in the light of the lantern, just on the edge, coming along the floor, walls and ceiling, are 3 carrion crawlers. They probably can sense him, but he has taken them by surprise. This is enough for him to cast invisibility on himself and, well, freeze. The carrion crawlers hear him casting, and they scuttle forward into the room. Some are on the floor, one is along the walls, and one is along the ceiling. And their tentacles are flicking this way and that, looking for him. This room is not that big, so it doesn't take long for them to cover quite a lot of area as they scurry along. He is frozen on the spot. One of the carrion crawlers starts coming towards him, feeling the floor and the furniture with its tentacles. He has to move to here. Remember, he isn't silent. Another one stops what it's doing and senses for where the noise is coming from and turns around and cuts him off, so he has to move to here. This alerts the one on the ceiling, which he looks up and he sees it scuttling towards him, so he has to make it back to the middle of the room where the first carrion crawler is at the door with the second one. So he's having to play a game of dodge while invisible, while these carrion crawlers are searching for him. And they have quite a wide search area because their tentacles, moving both left and right, fanned out in front of them. How long he can keep this up, I don't know, but at some point he's going to have to try and find a gap between here and make a break for the doors. Luckily, help is on the way, though he doesn't know it yet, but one carrion crawler has blocked off the door and it's feeling this area here. Another one is checking a corner that he was, and the third one on the ceiling is beginning to lower its head and drop its tentacles, and for a brief second he feels a tentacle brush his hair and he crouches on all fours, and making quite a clattering noise, he scurries into this corner. This alerts all of the carrion crawlers to stop what they're doing and move towards here. And just when it looks like it's curtains for him, the cavalry arrive. Before they get here, they can hear the carrion crawlers, they can see the lamplight, they know what's going on. Let's cast a spell. Donard is going to cast Bless. So everybody gets... I still have to remember what Bless does. Okay, it's just +1 to hit and damage. It doesn't provide any saving throw bonus, which would have been handy against the paralysis throws. Bless has been cast. The sound of the spell casting has alerted the carrion crawlers, and they're making their way out towards the door. Right, there's clearly going to be no surprise, but there will be initiative, and this attack will be staggered, so there will only be one carrion crawler at a time until all three of them make it into the fight. Hopefully the first one will be dead before that happens. Round number 1, and we get initiative. Right, there's no time for worrying about preserving arrows. The first carrion crawler is the one that's on the ceiling, and it's making its way from the ceiling down a wall. We're gonna shoot it with 2 arrows, +1 to hit and damage. Let's go for Liz, who has a certain urgency since it's her brother that's in the line of fire, and her missile THAC is currently 13. And she hits AC 7, which is good enough to hit a carrion crawler, and she does 2 + 3 damage, and the first one is down to 9. Sylvia, whose missile THAC is also 13, she hits AC 6, and she does 2 + 3 + 1. She does 6 damage. That carrion crawler is down to 3. Let's see if Donard can whack it with his Warhammer, and he can kill the first one. The second carrion crawler comes up for round number 2, and it gets initiative, so it's going to choose our cleric for 8 paralysis attacks. He has to make his saving throws, and he needs an 11 or more. He failed 1. It doesn't matter, he's paralyzed. So we have to shoot 2 more arrows. Liz misses. Shame. Sylvia misses. Shame again. Carrick. Ah yes, he hits, and he does 8 damage. It's down to 4. And Stephen steps up, and he does 5 + 2 + the 1 for the bless. That's well, it's more than enough. It only had 4 left. So the second carrion crawler is dead, and the third one comes up, and it's mutual, so I will do missiles first. And God. Liz hits Donard in the back of the head for 1 point. Sylvia, excellent, does 10 damage. It's down to 2. Right, I will do its melee attack, and it's going to attack Carrick. Carrick needs, I think, just an 8 or a 6. Yes, he just needs a 6. Remember, I'm using the, don't know whether it's the companion or the mastery rule set that added a strength bonus onto the saving throw versus paralysis. So his 8 drops to 6. And he fails the first 2. He's paralysed. So it's up to Stephen. Yes, he can easily hit. They have quite a low armor class. And the third carrion crawler is dead. However, we have some paralysed party members who are not at all happy. So everybody has to keep watch while Malin comes out of invisibility by saying thank you. Nobody is happy with him. In fact, he is in the doghouse. So when Donard and Carrick are freed, the party can make it all the way back to their barracks. And boy, are they unhappy with Malin. There's a few moments for Liz and Sylvia to get their watch, and Malin has to go to sleep. He can catch a bit, Donard can catch up on his bit of sleep. In fact, they're going to have to oversleep to make sure everybody is rested enough for the spells. When they wake up the next morning, I think the silent treatment given to Malin is enough to let him know that he's done wrong. There was some magical looking treasure from a couple of previous adventures. There's some really ornate plate mail that they found here, which seemed to be several thousand years old, but was still in very good condition. And there was a magic ring. Malin has already fantasized about a magic ring, so he's going to use his wand of magic detection. It started off with 40 charges. I think it's down to 30. And sure enough, the plate mail armor glows, as does the magic ring. Now this plate mail armor fits Donard and it looks a lot fancier than what he's currently wearing, so he's going to put that on, and good job he did, because that is plate mail +2. So his armor class has dropped to -2. That's a significant bonus. Malin, with much glee, puts on his magic ring, but he immediately feels ill. In fact, he feels ill and decrepit. And within 10 seconds, he suddenly loses nearly all of his strength. He can barely carry a spell book and he sits there exhausted. This is a cursed ring of weakness. When this ring is put on, the wearer becomes weaker and his or her strength score becomes 3 within 1 to 6 rounds. The wearer cannot take off this ring unless a remove curse spell is used. Now we have a remove curse on a scroll. Only Donard can use that scroll, and he refuses to use it. He tells Malin that this remove curse might be needed for something more important, and his weakness is not important. If anything, it'll teach him not to walk off. Some people think that Donard's being a bit harsh. Others agree. Liz agrees with Donard, and Donard thanks her. So Malin is cursed with weakness. I've been through the expert and basic book, and the only thing I can find about weakness, it lowers your damage rolls. It may lower your Thaco. I will have to double check on that, but apart from that, it doesn't seem to affect your encumbrance or your carry ability. Oh well, Malin is not a sword wielder anyway, so I don't think this weakness is overly going to affect his performance. However, it is a punishment for the fact that he endangered everybody. And, well, if we get back to the Hutakan priestess, she can remove the curse. But until then, Donard is insisting we keep this remove curse scroll for a more serious emergency. So the only place they haven't explored is the twisty tunnel that leads to the very smelly area where they think the Karatoba lives, and we will see how they get on as they march down these stairs in the darkness. In fact, Malin is too weak to hold the lantern, and that probably is the most devastating bit. And they make it into this chamber where they met the mummy, and we'll see how they get on with this smelly, downward twisting passageway. Right, so we're into a new level, and the party are creeping along this slime-filled tunnel. They're wading, not quite ankle deep, but more. The soles of their shoes are being stuck in the slime. It's extremely slippy and going is slow, and the tunnels twist and turn, and there's a persistent dripping noise that echoes everywhere. Stephen is the one holding the lamp. Malin is feeling thoroughly dejected, and they creep along, turning corners, and the echo sounds are alarming and unfamiliar. So they jump on several occasions at nothing. Now they turn this corner, and they don't get surprised by anything, and they keep going round slowly, with the light of the lantern glistening off all the slime on the walls and the floor. They've become accustomed to the smell. It's just so disgusting. And then all of a sudden there is a door. Let's listen at the door. We'll have Liz, and all she can hear on the other side of the door is more dripping, echoing noises, but she gets a faint sound of some kind of laughter. It's so out of place that she thinks she must have misheard it, but nonetheless, in formation, everybody opens the door, we go through, and we find ourselves in a slightly wider area. And at the end of the area are the bars of a cage. These bars are extremely thick, but they're spaced wide enough to look through, and as the party approach the bars, they realise they're at the top of a small 10-foot cliff that opens into a much wider area. There are several things to see in this area. For a start, it is covered in a deep slime, and when the party look up to the ceiling, they see the hole from the temple above, which, if you remember, had a cage on a winch that got lowered into this place. The hole is pitch black. There isn't even the glow of the blue natural gas from above, and the party can conclude that there must be some sort of magical darkness going on here. But underneath the pit, standing almost shin deep in this slime, is Gulthar, the magic user who started this whole business. And his yellow robes have become almost unrecognizable as he is half drenched himself in this corrosive slime. It's turned his skin white and blotchy, and he is busy just standing there laughing maniacally. And then, to his great surprise, he sees the party appear at this cage here, and he just bursts out laughing and says something unhinged. "I have become one with the new god," and he just laughs again. And Stephen says, "Gulthar, I have a debt to pay with you." And Gulthar says, "Well, come and get me." And he walks off into one of the many exits from this large cavern. The party look at these bars to see if there is a way through. There isn't. This is a dead end. So it seems, despite the fact we thought we found the entrance to the Karatoba's lair, all we found was the entrance to this viewing platform where we could view whatever the Karatoba did with the people who were lowered in the cage from the temple above. Why there is a viewing platform that leads into that temple to watch this happening? Well, all of this really is not adding up. Who are these Hutakans? What is their relationship with this Karatoba? But try as we might, we can't get any further, so the party have to go all the way back again. And they don't encounter anything, and they're back into the temple above. And there is a problem. How do they get into the rest of the Karatoba's lair? Well, everybody has a discussion. I'll throw to see who comes off with any bright ideas, any 5s or 6s. And it's Malin and Liz. So he might be extremely weak, but he still has his brains, and he confides in his sister and Stephen as well. And they come to the conclusion that the Karatoba appears in the valley by coming out of these small holes. So those holes must be connected to this cave network below the temple. So all they have to do is find one of these subterranean sinkholes and, well, climb into it. Right, so that's what's going to have to happen. The party are going to have to leave the temple, go back into the valley, and try their luck finding one of these sinkholes and maybe a slime trail. So that's where we will pick up next. The party are outside the Temple of Flower. They have to search the surrounding areas for any sinkholes that the Karatoba might go under. They're not too far from Roncan, so they might go there to rest, try and acquire some more food, and keep the Tralar up to date with what's going on. It would be best to have at least one of these tribes on our side, and the Hutakans are proving themselves to be not trustworthy at all. As brutal and as aggressive as the Tralar are, at least they're, well, you know what you're getting with them. We have borrowed some of their lizards and we're going to return with that. If we also have a load of treasure, some of which we can offer as proof of friendship, the alternative is that we've just spent time in the wilderness trying to forage. We aren't running low on rations, but it's always good to try and find a way to make your rations last. But it would be better just to go back to some kind of civilization and get some proper food. On the way there, oh by the way, look at my beloved expert rulebook. It's gone from being unused to damaged. Oh well. Where were we? Foraging. Characters may forage while travelling and move at 2/3 their normal rate, and you have a 1 in 3 chance of finding enough food to survive. Your DM may modify this due to the terrain. Right. Well, let's see if they find anything on the way back to Roncan, and I'm going to up the odds to 50-50. If they roll 50 or less, they find enough food to eat for that day, and by the time they get to Roncan, it's the evening, so they can at least have somewhere indoors to rest for the night. And they completely fail to find any food. Okay, they're going to have to go and beg at Roncan for hospitality. And they are indeed going to have to give up some of their treasure. I'll have to go back over what they've found in the temple to clarify what. Possibly just a large gem. There is the spare set of magical plate mail armour. Donard is wearing plate mail +2, which he recently found, and the party are trying to carry around his old plate mail +1. They don't really have a need for that. Selling it is going to be a pain, so they can always give that to the Tralar chief. He might look a bit ridiculous in it, as the Tralar are short. They're not quite dwarf-like. He could, at a pinch, fit into it. So that's what they'll do. They'll go back to Roncan. They will be treated with a bit of a frosty reception by the Tralar until they announce that they bring gifts, and they present this plate mail armour as a gift. They're taken inside, and the chief greets them stiffly and coldly on the grounds that he will accept the gift in return for hospitality, but don't think that we're friends. We can tell the Tralar that we've cleaned the Temple of Flower of all the undead, and we're going to hunt the dreaded Karatoba. That does meet with their approval. We also suggest that the temple itself is filled with other treasures that we couldn't carry. That is not strictly speaking true, but there are some things we didn't bother with, like golden ceremonial equipment and things like that. So, but to try and stop the Tralar from just going to raid the temple, we do tell them stories of the Karatoba and that strange pit. And sure enough, these Tralar claim that they know of this pit with the cage that gets lowered, but they only know of it through rumour, where Tralar have been taken to be sacrificed. So yes, we're winning them over to our side with our claims that we will finally kill this Karatoba. And we tell them that we need to find one of these sinkholes where they think it comes from. The Tralar can't point us in the way of them. There are many, and they have marked them in their memories. Our rations are stocked up. They don't use arrows. So far, Sylvia and Liz have between them shot 7 arrows and have recovered 3. So they have lost 4. They're down to 18 each. The next day comes around, our provisions are restocked as much as they can be with fresh meat. And the party are shown to one of these sinkholes that has dried crusty slime around it where the Karatoba appeared many weeks ago. And indeed it might be the same village that we were attacked in when we first saw the monster. But 1 hex is 2 miles. It's about a half a mile underground to get to what is considered the lair. So there's going to be half a mile of travel through windy, twisty tunnels just to get to this point here. So we're going to ask the Tralar for some torches to help us get through this far, and maybe if they have a flask of oil or some kind of clarified animal fat that they can lend us for fuel. and the DM is told that he should check for wandering monsters every quarter of a mile with a 1 in 4 chance of finding something. So the party have to go half a mile, so that is 2 1d4 rolls to see if anything leaps out at them. And both times they see nothing, so they make it to the beginning of this map here, and they really ought to clear this out within the next few days, because stocks are running low and the Karatoba in this lair here will be hunting them. And that's where I'll leave it for today, and I will see you all next time.